Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Justin. I'm back again with Mike. How you been, man?
Good.
Okay, so what I've been wanting to do lately with my movie reviews is less of me in front of the camera, and I just want to shoot the shit, so to speak, with someone else. I think it's more fun that way, especially after the movies come out, to talk all the spoilers in the world, because it's like, I don't know about you, Mike, but is it easy for you to be coy to someone when you're talking about a movie if they haven't seen it?
I mean, it's doable, but like at the same time, I think that it starts to get wonky because you're like trying to remember what exactly was in the trailer. And then there's some people who are like, "Oh, I didn't watch the trailer and I don't want to know anything from the trailer." So you have to be careful
Yeah.
with that. And even sometimes some people consider some small plot details spoilers. So I just try to avoid it. I usually just say, "Oh, it was good or it was bad," not really
Yeah.
like any specifics.
And that's as time goes on, especially with Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is the point of this video. I think like I was thinking about like hell yeah, I want to do a review, but then I was thinking about it more and more, and I'm just like, it's like I don't know. It's just like yeah, I could say like oh yeah, this is the setup. Like obviously you have the easy way to talk about the movie. You have this new blood, Finn Wolfhard, Mckenna Grace, I think her name is right.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Yeah,
I'm terrible with names, so you won't ask me.
and the single mom, and they moved to this random farmhouse in the middle of nowhere because that's what the mom's dad left her. The dad is Egon Spengler. So he's clearly passed away in the movie, which has happened in real life too. So I mean, I guess that was the only like way to write his character in, so to
Oh
speak.
yeah, no, I agree with that.
And so the kids start finding all his ghost tech, and an evil ghost comes up, evil monsters. Like it's a whole interesting clusterfuck of a movie, and that's basically what happens.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, a lot of the plot details will be just discussed like in the review because at a certain point, like I think both of us, at least I know I do, have specific points where I'm like, this is important, but this is why I liked this aspect.
Yeah, so I mean, going into it beforehand, we already knew, the old characters were going to show up. Ernie Hudson, Bill
Yeah.
Murray, Dan Aykroyd. Like I feel like me and you both, even though like you didn't see the second trailer, I
Actually,
did.
I ended up watching because I went to see a movie and it played, and I saw the last piece where he picks up the phone. Dan Aykroyd picks up the phone. So it
There's a
ended up
final
being.
trailer though where it shows chest down of the three guys with the
Oh, I didn't even see that. Oh, okay.
broken.
I thought you
Yeah,
were
so that was
referencing the
like in
phone
the
one. Yeah, I
one
didn't even see
final
that one.
trailer. But yeah, so like we had said, new kids coming in, find ghost tech. There's evil spirits coming back, and they have to fight them off. So it sounds somewhat familiar. It sounds a little bit like they took plot elements from the first movie. And as I was watching the first movie, I kind of picked up not so much towards the first like 2/3 of the movie, I'd say, but definitely in the finale. But I did like initial thoughts. I mean, I was excited for the movie. It looked cool. I'm a big Ghostbusters fan, but not like the biggest Ghostbusters fan. Like I love the film. It was great when I was a little kid. It still holds up. Second one's like I think decent, but I still have yet to buy that one on 4K.
I think like it gets. Here's the weird thing. It's like you said, I am a pretty big Ghostbusters fan, but I wouldn't say I know people who live and die
Would you
by
say
that.
Bustin' makes you feel good?
I mean, I'm not gonna say no, but no, but in all sincerity, like I knew that they were probably gonna show up at some point. I knew it was Egon's grandkids. Like I
Yeah,
knew
because even in
very
the first
basic
trailer,
plot
like they
stuff.
whip out the wardrobe that says Spangler on, so it's like, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, at a certain point, and like it, well, I'll get into it later, but like they nailed the casting with his granddaughter. But I'll save that for later.
But yeah,
But
well, I mean,
like
we both got
even
our
like
initial thought. Go ahead, sorry.
I mean like it's just like even with like just like with it getting delayed so much, I will say that sort of turned me off. But there was aspects I'm like, it is Ghostbusters. It has Paul Rudd. I do like Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. So I was at least giving it a little more like I don't know, like credence to what if it was going to be good or not. But I will
Yeah,
say the delays definitely, I think, would have hurt it if it wasn't actually as fantastic as it was.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. I did notice, I think I pointed this out to you. They had the first trailer, and then the second trailer came out, the one where he's like, we're closed at the end or whatever.
Yeah.
The scene where Finn Wolfhard is looking down the mine shaft with the girl, in the first trailer, the ghost effect color is a different color than the second trailer. It's the same exact shot. I can't talk. Same exact shot, same scene, same lighting outside, but literally the ghost effect is orange in one trailer and green in another.
I think that just comes down to maybe at one point they decided to re-render it, which for a scene like that might not take a long time, or they wanted to throw you off in the first trailer or something. You never really know what those reasons are, but like I mean, Marvel does it all the time.
Yeah. So both of us were intrigued. We were hyped for it, and so I'm just gonna flat out say, like, I really like this movie. Getting into the actual film itself, I like the movie. It had good casting. McKenna Grace was probably the standout. Like, she did a great job. I loved how she was a sciencey nerd.
I don't think they could have nailed the casting any more than they did.
I mean, she was going in hard with the dad jokes, and I was here for it.
Oh, no, I was dying. But here's the thing, though, and this is what I will honestly say: you could have not given that she was Egon Spangler's granddaughter, and that would have been a twist at the end of the movie. And the second she shows up in the movie where she's working on the wires in the wall, there's no doubt you're like, oh, that would be the twist. It's Egon's granddaughter. Like,
yeah, maybe.
It was basically like watching a younger version of Egon. I know it sounds weird, but I was like, they nailed
and that's the thing that was so much different from the 2016 Ghostbusters is this. It's like her, Finn Wolfhard's character, podcast, Paul Rudd, like they all had their own quirks. The mom's quirk was like she was kind of like a hard ass, like, no, I don't believe in any of that shit. You guys need to go to school, no playtime. Like, you know what I mean? Like like the mom was very much a realist who like just straight up didn't give a shit about her dad. Like I was just like, I'm surprised because like you see a lot of properties come back for a modern audience and they like not Disneyify it, you know, but like they kind of like dull it down a bit as far as the serious stuff goes.
I think like it really comes down to they couldn't, because while the original Ghostbusters was kind of like it was much funnier and a lot less depressing, but I feel like I even read a review that somebody put a negative review out because they said that it just completely missed it in terms of like what is a quirky comedy into like a teenage drama, and I'm like, but that was kind of the point. Like, it brought it to new audiences. It still had the comedic aspect, but I think that, like, if it was straight up them just redoing Ghostbusters, I don't think it would have worked.
You have to.
When it came out there was nothing else like it at that time, and I still don't think there's ever been anything made that's like Ghostbusters.
No, and you have to evolve your franchise as time goes on. Certain movies it works out, other movies it doesn't. Like Cobra Kai. Like Cobra Kai is a movie to TV show. It's a little different, but Cobra Kai evolved their audience and tone to a modern audience. Because I mean, like you have them saying, like people drawing dicks on Daniel San's billboard and stuff like that. And you have all this other stuff fighting. Like the first one, obviously, was made years and years ago. But like either way, with this Ghostbusters, it kept it dark at times. It kept it quirky with certain characters. And dude, the second the movie started out with the theremin and the haunting music, I was right away. I was just like, dude, I'm gonna fucking love this movie. Like, the
OG, like they even had like the typing. What I forget what you would call that, but like they had the typing. Yeah, the font. Thank you. I'm blank.
No, you're good.
The font, the logo, like everything, they just nailed it from start to finish.
And like, yeah, they did bring back some of the old like Ghostbusters themes with like like the like little piano theme. I'm doing a terrible job at doing it, but they also threw it in the Ghostbusters game and stuff like that. And I think, like I said, for the first 2/3 of this movie, I was really enjoying the hell out of it. Like, I liked how different it was. I liked that I was seeing some practical effects and stuff like that. I like how there was references. I haven't seen the first Ghostbusters in like a year or so.
Yeah,
so like I got a lot of the references. Like there was some like with the Nestle Crunch Bar and stuff like that. I think Frank filled me on it, but it's like certain things. It's like okay, yeah, I know that's to something, and someone's probably going to type it in the comments. And Frank told me, and it already like
yeah.
But yeah, like I liked how Finn Wolfhard's character was like the older brother. I was worried in the trailers because you see him hopping into Ecto 1 and he's driving it down the street and skirt. Like, I was like, dude, if those haven't been using forever, like 30 years, 40 years later, them tires would have popped right away.
No,
but
it's not even that. My mom looked like after we got home from seeing the movie, going to see it with my family. She looked at me out of the whole movie and just went, well, the one thing is after he got the car started, there was still gas in it. Like, that's the first thing she said. Like, after sitting in there all that time, he couldn't get it to start, but somehow it had enough gas in it for all that.
So, this game I played, like the Dark Pictures House of Ashes, it takes place in Iran, and they go down to this catacomb, like underneath the mountains or whatever, and they find that like people were there during the World War I or II era, and there's a generator there with all the lights. Obviously, hasn't been touched in 60 years. So she gets some spark plugs, does it up, and then starts the fucking generator. I was like, dude, no way. No way. No. Like a year or 2 years, maybe I could fathom that. But no, not
I just
not
like
that
how we're
long.
talking about the and this is what I told her. I said,
but they did show. I was getting to the point that they did show shots of Finn Wolfhard like tweaking the car, fixing up stuff, doing other things. So it's like, okay, all right, that's fair.
No, but the thing is, it's like suspending the disbelief for that is harder because I was just explaining this, that when you're going into a movie about ghosts, whether you believe in them or not is irrelevant to the point that like there's not a tangible thing that everyone sees day to day that you can say, oh, this is this. So you can suspend disbelief much easier than something that like cars need gas to run. You know what I mean? So like you end up thinking those things that, because it's daily in your life, you end up processing it much easier than just, oh, there's ghosts in a movie. It's like, well, that was the point. You're supposed to suspend disbelief for that. But
yeah, and like certain people, like I know my buddy Thomas, you guys have seen him in some of my videos. He was questioning that earlier on in the film, the girl who Finn Wolfhard was interested in said she had a boyfriend, and then like that arc wasn't ever touched. Like her and her boyfriend, that arc wasn't touched upon through the rest of the thing. I was like, but I explained to Thomas, I was like, all right, I'm going to be honest with you. I have asked out a fair amount of girls, and a few of them had said they've had they have a boyfriend when they actually don't. They're just trying to either play hard to get, or they have their guard up. Like, I understand that. Or
I understand,
or maybe like she broke off with, or maybe she still had a boyfriend the whole time, and maybe things were going rocky or something like that. I just feel like she didn't have one, and she just said it because they just met kind of thing. So she wanted to kind of like get a feel from as a person instead of like him just drooling over. Because I'm not gonna, like, when I was young and I heard a girl was single, like all I thought about was just like being with her, not like what was in common. So like, you know, when dumb young love, you're just interested in the fact that she's a girl and she's attractive. Yeah. So I think maybe that's what it was. It's just her playing hard to get. But like, I just liked how Finn Wolfhard, he wasn't like the main character, even though he was the bigger star. Mckenna Grace was still the main character, and he like overall, I think Finn Wolfhard played a good part. He wasn't like ridiculously memorable, but
I think but it wasn't supposed to be about him. It was supposed to be about the granddaughter because, like I said, Mckenna when you look at her character, she was supposed to be Egon, like to a T. That's what she did. She was a scientist, and Mike just didn't. Or Finn Wolfhard, is his name Mike in the movie, or am I just crazy?
No, it's not.
Then I'm just an idiot.
I thought it was like Richie or something like that. I'm probably wrong too, but
yeah, I'm like, my problem is I'm terrible with names. But anyway, point is Finn Wolfhard he didn't need to be the star, but when he needed to shine, he did.
Yeah.
Like at the end when he pops out of the car
with like his name was Trevor, not Richie. I don't know where that. I was just pulling that out of my ass. I'm not gonna lie.
So we were both way off. But like even when he popped out, when he needed to be badass, he was right there. And at no point, like he got like scared of stuff, but they all did. But at no point was he like running the other direction. Like he made sure that like I will say about his character. His character was consistent. Like he wanted to be the adult that he was the entire time.
Yeah,
even though he was only 15.
Yeah, he was, I think, well placed enough in the film, just like McKenna Grace's character. The hell was her name now? McKenna Grace. Phoebe. Duh. McKenna Grace's character Phoebe. She had that friend podcast, and like he was cool. He was funny. He had some jokes, and like I enjoyed his character. It's not like I'm gonna write home about him or anything like that, but it's just like he served his purpose. Like that's what he was. But then again, it's Ghostbusters, so like I think you also have people who, and I've heard this from a few of my friends, who said the first third of the movie is slow. I didn't get that at all.
Okay, I will say that. But the first thing my mom said to me when we got out of the theater was it was slow, and I said, "Well, it has to be because when it really comes down to it, this movie was bringing it to a new generation of audience. Let's say you never had the original Ghostbusters. Let's just say for some reason this was the first movie.
Yeah.
It would still be a slow build-up, and I understand that. Like, when you're trying to do... It's a soft reboot. It's like, hey, we're giving this movie to the people who may not have seen the original, or, who may not have seen the original, or are not really, like... Or haven't seen it in, like, God knows how many years, and they just wanted to bring it to all audiences so everyone can enjoy it without feeling like they're missing something. And I think they nailed that because watch that. Like, my sister has never seen the original Ghostbusters, and she even enjoyed it because, like, there was no part of the story that she didn't understand it because, like, they didn't actually, like, they didn't glaze over anything. They weren't just like, oh, if you saw the original, so we don't need to deal with this. It's like, no, they dealt with everything.
Yeah, they did deal with a lot. And, like, the opening shot, like, even though it was like someone who had like a shadow over, so I was like, this is Egon. Like, this is current day Egon. Like, they didn't show his face or anything, but I was like, I knew this was Egon. But like, they definitely did reference a lot of stuff. Even though I think there was maybe one or two small elements of Ghostbusters 2 in the movie. Like, you had Dan Aykroyd's character at Raise a Cult. Like, that was from Ghostbusters 2. And I think Frank did say the Nestle Crunch bar was part of Ghostbusters 2 or whatever, but the director has flat out come out and said that Ghostbusters 2 is canon. Like, he said,
I saw that interview today.
Yeah, he said that what happened, like certain things in the movie, like I believe when the Ecto-1 comes up, it's like the Ecto-1 normally, not Ghostbusters 2 Ecto-1 where he's putting up the peace sign or the 2 sign. But like he said, Egon's had that car for forever, so like he said, the little stuff like that has the potential to be explained in future things. That's why, like, I like when, even if a movie isn't well received, like, they can touch upon it a little bit, but still, like, try not to.
Like, honestly, I know you're not a big fan of 2. I'm not the biggest fan of 2, but I really
enjoyed
it.
I thought it wasn't bad, but like, it's just, I like originality, and so like. The second one, while it did have different plot points that were different, it was similar to the first one. And the frickin' reboot, Ghostbusters 2016, like, Answer the Call, like, what's that subtitle or whatever? Like, literally, Ghostbusters 2016, same plot as the first movie almost. And you had, instead of, that little shrew character from, like, the second Ghostbusters movie, the dude that was, like, obsessed with the painting. Mm-hmm. He's basically, like, the dude in the 2016 reboot who's like the little doofy like guy who is like this. I think he was like a scientist. I only saw the movie once, man, but he was like this dumb like Igor type character and stuff, and he was just dumb. And then you had the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man at the end. I was like, ugh. I just hate unoriginality. And like with these prequels that like Jay and Silent Bob reboot, like obviously yes, it is a very similar plot to the first film. It tweaks it enough to where I appreciated it. This one tweaked it a decent amount that I appreciated it, but there's still a few things that I'll get into later.
I disagree with you. I don't care. I do care about originality, but originality in a remake doesn't matter to me. As long as you're not frame by frame redoing it, which I know they have done before. But like, I know like this is like kind of sort of a side tangent, but like I know a lot of people didn't like Force Awakens. I love The Force Awakens, but I love it because it's literally A New Hope redone. I didn't want originality in that one. I wanted the more or less the copy and pasted version. They did take their like time and effort.
Yeah, see,
but
I can't
answer the call,
stand that shit because that's
yeah.
just lazy to me.
I know, but it's not lazy if you're paying homage, because you look at something like Answer the Call, and while I know people fucking hated it, I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was horrendous. I didn't think it was necessarily good either. I just enjoyed it, I guess, for what it was. But like them redoing the plot is not what bothered me. There was like 100 other things in that movie that I was like, this is terrible. But
I mean, I guess
the plot was not one of them.
Yeah, I just when I see reboots like that, I'm just like, ugh, come on now. Like it's like there's a way to redo something, or like I want to say reboot because it's like with this, it's like Jay and Silent Bob. This is a requel or a revitalization of.
Yeah, but I will say one thing. The one thing that had this, I mean, not everyone knows that Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis and the director of the first one wrote it. I mean, the director didn't have everything, but he was in on the writing sessions. Like, Dan Aykroyd has flat out said that. And it's, if you look, it just like, on most things, it just says it's written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. First and second one.
Yeah.
You look at the new movie and you just go, okay, it was written and directed, or co-written and directed by the son of the original director.
Yeah.
At that point, you either have two options. You're close enough to the project that you can make it work, or you're so close to the project that you're going to try to divert too much. And I think that he probably took a lot of time to talk with Dan, to talk with Bill Murray.
Yeah, I think that definitely happened too. Yeah.
His dad, to be like, okay, let's get this straight. I doubt they pitched it and did everything else without Dan Aykroyd reading over it first and being like, here's some stuff that I might change, and without changing the creative, like, ambiance, I guess. But there was never a time, I think, that movie was getting made where Dan Aykroyd wasn't approving everything sort of as it was going. Maybe not when it was getting directed, but I mean, like, written. Like, I doubt the studio even saw it before Dan Aykroyd did.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think talking about it more and more, I'm just at the point now where, like, this is obviously like the third film. It's a revitalization of the franchise, and the early portions of the movie kind of felt like some people I know who didn't like Star Wars Rogue One said it was too slow, or Avengers Endgame, because they said the first 2/3 of the movie was too slow. But I was like, I don't mind if movies are slow burns as long as it's interesting and they have lore and they have references and all this other shit. Like,
as long as it's furthering along the plot, because I tell people all the time, there has been plenty of fast movies that are terrible and plenty of slow movies that are fantastic. And I think as long as it keeps the flow of the movie without feeling like you're just watching something that's not furthering the plot. And like, there's movies where you have 20 minutes of a movie where they're not really doing anything but dialogue. There's nothing that furthers the plot that if you took it out, it really wouldn't change much. But I don't think there was much that if they changed, like, it wouldn't be continuing to further.
Because with Phoebe's character, like, there was a lot of scenes of her learning about stuff. But the thing is, you have to have the new characters. You have to evolve them a bit. You have to build the world. You have to establish where they are now. And the old characters and the new characters, make you care about both, cater to both audiences, old and new, and that shit's not going to happen in like the first 20-25 minutes. I didn't want to see her like wielding a proton pack and using it within the first like 20 minutes of the movie. That would have been stupid. No, like, she's a scientist. She feels like she's alienated from everyone else. No one understands her. And then slowly but surely throughout the earlier portions of the film, she's finding out like, oh shoot, like, this makes sense. Like, this is what I'm meant to do. Like, this is who I am, and there's other people out here that get me too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it like I said, some people think that slow equals bad, and like, I do think there's like, I don't think that's. I mean, I know that's not the case, but I don't think that people. I think what they see is they think slow, and when they think slow, they think they don't have an idea, and I'm like, there's a difference between building to nothing and building to something that can be great. Now, like I said, I will admit, though, one thing about the movie, the more I think about it, the more I really think about it. The ending wasn't necessarily, like, clunky, but it felt
and we'll talk about the ending in a few minutes, too.
It felt kind of first. I'll say that.
Yeah, we'll talk about the ending in a few minutes, but I just like besides that, before the final act, like the new tech was cool. The explanation of it was cool because it was kind of like Harold Ramis's character was working all this and tinkering in the background over all these years while the other dudes like went their separate ways. And like we were saying, slow build up and like I mean perfect example Godzilla 2014. Like that's a really good slow build up movie to me. And this was the same thing. Like they had little stuff sprinkled in here there that made it exciting, not just the characters but little action moments too. I mean, you have that whole scene in like what would you say maybe like 40 minutes into the movie, 45 minutes into the movie, the Ecto one and the scene where they go through town in the gunner seat. What do you think? That's 45 minutes into the movie? You think it might be a little later than that?
I think it's a little later because I think the movie is 2 hours.
Yeah, so it might be about halfway then. But I mean,
Yeah.
that still doesn't bother me though.
No, and that's the thing. Like it doesn't because, like I said, as long as you're building to something big and all the little things, like even like playing chess with her grandfather, like just like the whole chess thing. I'm like, some people could have said, well, why didn't they just have her play the chess game in the first place instead of building up with it, moving one piece a night and then building up to the next day? And it's like
because she didn't believe in ghosts at first, just like her mom. Like
yeah, and it's not even just that. It's the fact that like you have to build up, like the way they've built up these ghosts is they do get strength by other means in both movies. So like Harold Ramis probably didn't become a ghost and just instantly was like, oh, I'm powerful enough to be able to move stuff. Like,
yeah, and I think I will say that portion, like the first 2/3, all the characters, special effects, all that great stuff was great. Like I was having a fun time. Soundtrack was good, and like I looked at the dude who did the soundtrack, and he hasn't done much before, but he blended like a little bit of a new touch and the mix of the older scores, and it's just perfect. But if we're going to talk about the third act, I'll just let you dive in first.
All right. So I first of all, I just want to say J.K. Simmons, him showing up even for like that brief like few minutes
as Shandor, yeah.
Yeah, like I didn't realize it was him when he was in the coffin, but once he stood up and started talking, I'm like J.K. Simmons. But
yeah,
I just think that like the only part that I thought was clunky, and I know is like that when they show up at the end and they have basically the same banter they do as they did in the original. It felt a little forced, but I will say the nostalgia took over so hard, I didn't care about the
definitely.
So, like, that's all I kind of wanted to see anyway. So I think they nailed that because sometimes you just have, like, a nostalgia thing that's so forced that you kind of just, like, fall out of it because you're like, now you're just putting it down my throat. Like, I did want it, but I wanted it to be in a less, like, forceful way.
Did you think it was really cool that, Harold Ramis basically like Laurie Strode the shit out of his house?
Yeah, I was like, no, because like I just was watching it, and I'm like, that's cool, and like and what I like about the movie is that it's basically a giant trap. Like you can figure that out from the opening scene. So when they realize it at the end, obviously we're let in onto knowledge that they aren't just like any other movie.
Yeah, there's all those traps, and then you have the thing with the tunnels and like all the Ghostbuster rays go like that and like kind of like keep the demons at bay almost. Yeah, I thought that was cool. Like that.
Oh, absolutely. And like you can tell like that with the ancient civilization and everything, like how cool. Like even if when they were looking down the well and you see it and she's just staring in that, and you just like they're like, come on, and she's just not moving. I'm like, that's something that is totally like a Ghostbusters thing. And
yeah, dude. A lot of the humor definitely, yeah. Like I will say, my brother pointed this out too. Initially, when they were showing that scene inside the mine or whatever, or inside the caves, the Ecto one is in the caves. I'm like, how the fuck did it get into the caves?
No, I thought like, that same thing.
And then like later on, they show that scene driving out at like a lower portion of the mountain. But they don't show it like they don't show an entrance opening up and them driving out. They just show like I believe they show the mountain and like the car pulling off in the distance. I was just like, but like they didn't they have that entrance? There was like earlier in the film, Podcast and Phoebe saw that one entrance towards the lower portion of the mountain, right?
Yeah, so like I think it's just a certain point, like I said before, you have to suspend disbelief, which
Yeah.
I understand that's the case. Sometimes there's going to be plot holes, but like no movie is perfect, and I think that this movie is just goes to show that a movie doesn't have to be perfect for it to be great. A movie doesn't have to rely on anything super specific. Like the movie also didn't rely on nostalgia. It had it in bucket loads. But there was no point where they were like, you won't like this movie unless you like the nostalgia. Like I said, my sister never saw Ghostbusters and she enjoyed it.
Yeah, like, and I think each of the characters got their own specific moments too. Like, you have certain remakes, like when I saw Coming to America, like 2 or whatever, like Coming to America or whatever,
Yeah.
they were digging hard with some of the references. Not to mention, like, Coming to America 2 is like a well-known, like the first movie is well-known, but it's not like obviously like uber popular like Star Wars or Harry Potter or
Yeah.
Ghostbusters. But still, like, this movie did not dig like that deep, like not that deep with the references to people who love the original. And you can't even fault, even if for some people say like, oh, this was too reference heavy, you can't even fault it for that because you literally have a son who is paying tribute to his dad at that point as the girl.
And it's not even just that. It's the simple fact that you have like this movie would not have worked if it wasn't made within the family. And I think that like that is very important. Like I don't think Dan Aykroyd would have let any other specific person write it that wasn't involved somehow. And he might have let people try. But I don't think it ever would have come out that way because there's a difference between being nostalgic because you want to do nostalgic things from the movie and being nostalgic because you were fucking there. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think that's what.
And you know who we have
he,
to thank for
he
that?
Had the essence.
You know who we have to thank for that?
Who?
Paul Feig for making such a fucking shitty movie that the son of the original director decided I can do way better than that and did.
Yeah, I think like I understand.
Yo, what's the name? Leslie Jones was so pissed when they announced this new one. I think she was trashing it too. I was just like, hey, it is what it is.
I think at a certain point, here's the problem that I have with that movie, and I'll just be blunt about this. I didn't hate it, like I said. Didn't love it either. I think I don't mind them doing an all-female remake. More power to whoever wants to do that. I really don't. My issue lies within the fact that they tried something ambitious at certain points, and it just didn't work. And that's not necessarily to say that Paul Feig, is that his name? Paul Feig? Is that how I pronounce that right? Feig, whatever it is. The point is
Kevin Feige's brother, Paul Feig.
At a certain point, you can't fault somebody for trying something different, but like it just was never going to work. It felt so forced in the sense that they're like, we're going to make a female version. Like, I think, like,
and not to mention like the way this movie thrived is the 2016 one. All the jokes and humor felt like a poorly executed like SNL sketch. Like you were setting up to set things up, and this one it's just like all the quirks of all the different characters bounced off of one another, just like they did in the original one. Like even Paul Rudd. Like we haven't talked much about Paul Rudd, but I like Paul Rudd. Like he was
Paul
cool.
Rudd was one of the main reasons.
He bonds with Phoebe, and like it's like this sort of like elder like dad type figure, and like I just like how he loved like the original Ghostbusters. He's just like, yo, like this is a cool replica. I love like people know about this, but I think since Phoebe was just so far into her own stuff, like all the science and whatnot, she only liked to be into stuff that she could prove. So I think Paul Rudd's character is like that good middle ground, like he definitely brought the like belief in otherworldly things into her head initially.
Oh yeah, and I think to be honest, like he had some great comedic moments, and he basically played Rick Moranis' character from the original, which I will just say as a side note, the only thing I felt was missing from this was a cameo from him, and I understand that might not have happened. I'm hoping that if they do continue this, whether it be a TV show or a movie, that Rick Moranis shows up at some point because like genuinely, that's the only thing I felt that was really missing, because growing up with Little Giants and Ghostbusters and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids,
yeah.
you get to a certain point, like even Strange Brew, like you get to a certain point where with like Rick Moranis leaving, it was felt when he left movies. Like but I understand with his wife dying and him raising his kids, I understand why he never really wanted to come back.
Yeah.
But it felt a little empty without him.
I think people had some sort of hope because he reprised his role from Spaceballs in Goldbergs. He was in that Mint Mobile commercial with Ryan Reynolds.
Yep.
Like, it's a commercial, obviously. It's not a movie.
And I think he's in the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids Disney show they're doing.
Maybe, I don't know.
I think he's going to be in it.
I think if I can talk about the ending now, it's just like the ending, and not like the beginning of the third act or whatever. But it's just like the whole thing with like Zool and Gozer and like Paul Rudd and the mom in the movie literally being like Sigourney Weaver's character. Sigourney, I don't know. Brought her in on that Sigourney hospital style. But no, like, I think that was that idea was a little stale, and having Olivia Wilde, what's that character's name? Was that Gozer or Zool that has like the short hair, or was that completely?
You're gonna ask me for, I think it's somebody different, because I think it's a mind god. You're gonna ask me for names, and that's the one thing I have literally watched an entire movie and couldn't tell you a single person's name in that almost every time. Yeah. I'm just terrible with names. But no, like, I do love the fact that Sigourney Weaver showed up in the bonus scene. Like, I just love how it, like, and Sigourney Weaver, smash cut to her, and like after the mid-credit scene. And I thought they nailed even that, because that was full of nostalgia. It was funny, and that's all it needed to be. It was just an additional thing that it's like, hey.
Sorry, I'm looking at the cast list right now.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, it was just something that they didn't want to forget her. They're like, oh, we want to add these for the people that know this is fantastic. And it was funny, it was nostalgic, and I didn't feel like it was forced. And that's the important thing. Like, even if it is a little forced.
Yeah, Olivia Wilde did play Gozer. She did play Gozer. And that was one of my gripes with the final act. Like, having it be the same exact villain from the first movie and the same exact type of thing. Like, I thought you could have swapped out Gozer's character and the whole two-person arc becoming, like, embodied with those things. I thought you could have swapped that whole thing, had Ivo Shandor, like J.K. Simmons' character, have him had a bigger role, and then maybe he was in charge of, like, the whole reason why he's sleeping is that, like, they keep all the, like, maybe he gets powers from, like, the other ghosts and stuff, and the whole reason why he's sleeping is that the ghosts can't come up and, like, power him up. I don't know. But, like, you know what I mean? I think it was just too reminiscent. It was just too reminiscent of the first movie that I was just like...
bother me. I think they nailed it.
Like, the ending to me is just like, this is unoriginal. Like, I've seen this before.
But that doesn't bother me, because if they do it well a second time, it doesn't matter. You could literally, like, you see bands redo their song, and as long as it's good both times, it's good. And I think they really
I get that, but it's just like, it's like seeing a villain like Legend of Zelda, mind you, like one of my favorite video game franchises. I got tattoo on my leg. I love it. Ganondorf is literally the villain every single one, and I still love all those games, but my favorite game is Majora's Mask, because that's just different. That's original. And, like, the ending, don't get me wrong, it's fun to see, like, Bill Murray interacting and being his character from the original. Like, hey, did you miss me? Like, all that stuff. And even have the joke where, like, they cross the streams, like, in the original, but she's like, nah, I'm not playing that shit anymore. And, like...
Yeah.
But, like... that just, it didn't do it for me. Don't get me wrong. Like, I did almost shed a tear when you saw Harold Ramis, like, there holding Phoebe's, like, gun.
Dude, I'm just saying, like, the weirdest thing happened. It started raining in the theater. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, all of a sudden, you see him holding it, and then he hugs his granddaughter and hugs his daughter, and I was just like, it just started raining. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, little drops on your face somehow. Like,
yeah, it was 4D. That shit was 4D.
But like the CGI on him was really freaking good. Like I'll go out there and say I thought it was better than Star Wars, like Uncanny Valley or Marvel. I think it was just because like he had the blue hue. He was a little bit see-through, so I don't think you had to have perfection in it.
I think they still nailed it though.
But it looked perfect though. Like it looked
absolutely.
It looked like Harold Ramis's character modernized, like with the beard and everything like that. They definitely took like stock footage, I want to say. I don't think it was full CGI, maybe some CG embellishment with wrinkles, but like obviously you've seen Harold Ramis like before he died. He doesn't look like that when he's old.
I will say this, that if you handed me that picture, you didn't give me any reference. Like if you just handed me a picture of that,
like a picture of the CGI Harold Ramis in the movie.
Yeah, if you just like, if there was no reference, if I was just walking down the street and somebody said, "Who is this?" I'd be like, "It looks like the ghost of Harold Ramis." Like you wouldn't even have to think about it. Like it's just.
And that was like, it was perfectly executed. Also, he didn't speak, so that like I think that made it more believable.
I think if they had him speak, I think that would have ruined it because he would have had like it just wouldn't work.
It's a visual thing. He's a spirit, and like. Because when someone dies, you want to remember them how you remember them. Like, and he's just like, you see him blink at times and like smile and stuff like that. And there was no like floaty head. It didn't look jarring and everything. It was perfect. And then I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, I love this. Like, the thing, like I said, with the same plot line as the first movie, like I did kind of glaze over that just because of the fact that like I was like, whatever, nostalgia's kicking in. Like, this is covering up for me for the time being. But like. And then the movie was like, for Harold. I was like, oh, what? Like, it just ended so sudden. I thought there was going to be some sort of follow-up, like how the kids are going to interact with the new Ghostbusters. They did have, like, the shot of the quick random shot of, like, the Ecto-1 driving in New York. I was like, oh, okay. Like,
okay, I will say, though.
And, like...
I didn't need anything else because, like, once they came up for Harold, they can set anything they want up with the rest of the sequel. I loved the footage of her giving him the coin in.
Yeah, but that's like end credits scene. I'm talking about like just like how the movie ended.
I know, but that's the thing though. I felt that them just cutting the movie there was perfect because once you start adding stuff, you start to lose what just happened. So I think ending it there of just like, hey, we saw Harold. You see them driving into New York for Harold. Boom, done. But the after credits, I think, was the exact thing you needed in addition because it gave you more story without feeling like you're extending what you're already in such a feel-good moment. I feel like adding stuff would have sort of taken you out of it.
So what story did the first end credits scene give it, in your opinion?
Okay. The fact that Sigourney Weaver shows up, it has a little bit with Bill Murray being a teacher now and who he is as a person. He's still the same old guy. And I think that, like, that was just a cool nostalgia thing. However, the ending is really where I think what I said shines, is that you saw the back footage of her giving the coin.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and you saw that it was like, hey, even though, like, that ended, because once that was done, it's kind of where do you go from here? Because they were like, no, this is the big show. Like, this is the year. There was no, like, from far as I know, there was no other year, so this was the big show. But Ernie Hudson reopening the firehouse, I was like,
big Winston
this is
hours.
The addition I needed. Yeah, straight up. And
the best thing is, he was the dude who was just trying to get a paycheck in the first movie, and now in this one, I just love the fact that like he's rich and is helping everyone else thrive. All the original Ghostbusters thrive. And I was like, that's what's up. And I think they said he's got kids too.
He might, and that's the thing is like when you watch the scene where he's standing in the firehouse and they open the doors and everything, and I'm like, that's all I needed because, like I said, you didn't need any more story. It ended on such a feel-good note. I feel like the more you add, you would start to take away from it. And I didn't think the movie needed well, where do we go from here? And it's like, where we go from here is you'll find out if this movie makes a sequel because I can guarantee you this will make bank. It made like 60 million.
I think so. In my opinion, as far as the ending went, like boom for Harold, and then it shows a shot of the Ecto-1 going in. I was like, oh, well, that was pretty sudden. So then they showed the end credits.
I will admit it is sudden. I just didn't think.
The end credits scene with Sigourney Weaver, I thought was completely pointless and stupid. Like I thought they could have removed that out. It did nothing for me because.
No. But see, that's the thing though. Is if Sigourney Weaver wasn't in it, I would have been like legit be like same thing with like I wouldn't have said it would have ruined the movie or anything.
I think it's like if you do the exact same thing as the last movie, which
That
they
doesn't
did for this
bother me.
one,
Like I love
like
that. I wanted that exact same thing. That's what I needed.
So that's my thing. An end credit scene is supposed to be a bonus scene or something cool. I get it. But if your end credit scene is the exact same thing as the last movie's end credit scene, then like it's just stupid and dumb. Like the whole big hook with Ghostbusters 2016 was Sigourney Weaver showed up at the end or in the end credit scene, and in this she does the exact same thing. I was like, okay. Well, they're talking like Bill Murray's talking to. I'm still talking. Hold on. Like Bill Murray's talking to Sigourney Weaver, and it has nothing to do with the movie at all. Like not one thing. Nothing to really. It doesn't need to further the plot. Obviously, you can have like the Avengers scene where they're eating shawarma and stuff like that. Like you can have dumb end credit scenes, but this like I felt like if the New Blood was the focus, then having an end credit scene with the two end credit scenes only focused on the original cast is kind of weird. Like I thought they could have, if they did have an end credit scene, get rid of the one with Sigourney Weaver, keep the one with, or even mix some of it into the end. Like, all right, well, Ernie Hudson's character is bringing the Ecto-1 into the garage. Okay, well, they already showed during the movie, not the end credit scene, they already showed the Ecto-1 going back to New York. So in the final end credit scene, the Ecto-1 is showing being in New York again. I was like, all right, well, we already knew that from the little random shot at the end of the movie.
Takeaway. See,
but it's just like
I literally could not I could not disagree with you more. I don't need originality. I wanted exactly.
It's not even that though. It's just like, why do I need like you have For Harold, and then you have a 20-second shot of like the Ecto-1 in New York City and like them playing a little instrumental of the Ray Parker Jr. song, and then they keep. I was like, okay, as a whole though, if you're a new audience member, like your sister, like she probably knows, you probably told her, but like a new audience member is like, okay, who's this chick? Like who's this chick in the end credit scene? Like, and I think I wish like going forward, like they're teasing what the future of Ghostbusters is with like the tank, like when Ernie Hudson pulls the Ecto-1 in, like you were saying, and you see the tank like malfunctioning or showing that it's full or something like that. But I was just like, all right, well, how are the main characters of this film, the ones that for an hour and a half were solely about them, how do they fall into this? Like, it's just like, I wish they would have shown like Finn Wolfhard and McKenna Grace or something, like even something at the end of the movie or something like that, saying like, hey, like what do you have planned for like spring break or something like it's like why don't we go to New York or something like that, like it's shown like the kids might visit New York, everyone, like I just wish that like
I disagree with that.
The end of the movie had closure for like the old Ghostbusters and where that's headed, but like there's no closure or anything or no hint of where the main focus of the movie's characters are headed.
But that's the thing. I don't want that. And me, in my personal opinion, I don't want that because there is something that I just like. It like I've seen it so many times, and this is where your thing of originality kicks in. It's like I do not think it's original to be like, where do we go from here? Oh, we're going to New York. I'd be like, well, that's just so stupid because at that point you're just sitting there going, oh, well, they're going to end up in New York. Well, it's kind of like no shit, Sherlock. Like that's kind of where they're hopefully going, and I don't mean that as like
like it might be implied in your head, but it's just
it's kind of exactly like when. Like, I don't need to see more than what I saw because I know that if they never do a sequel, that's fine. That's just it. But if they do a sequel or if a TV show and they show up, I just like, it's safe to assume that the next one will take place in New York. It'll be back to the roots.
I just think it was jarring in the sense that, like, obviously you had the little fun clip with Sigourney Weaver that I didn't like. And then you had the end credit scene when they showed retro footage, flash forward to like the transition of Annie or whatever holding the coin or whatever, and then they have another scene after that, like not another end credit scene, but another scene following the events in the office of him opening up the hook and ladder again or whatever. It was like it felt kind of like the end of the Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, where it kept fading out and fading back in and showing like random things just to follow up with a bunch of different things. I was just like. Like I just felt like the director didn't know how to end the movie, so they just kind of threw in shit wherever they wanted. And
No, but see, like that's and this is really where the argument comes down to. That is always going to be an opinion-based thing because I think the exact opposite. I think that he nailed the ending because he knew if you put anything else in there, you take away from what just happened. Like all I needed was day one, Ecto's back in New York. Nothing else. And I think Sigourney Weaver showing up and why I love that so much is I just needed a nostalgia thing. Like I wanted her in it, but
that was the whole movie. The whole movie was nostalgia already.
But that's the thing though. Let's put it this way. If she wasn't in it, I would have felt her absence just as much as I felt Rick Moranis' absence. But they didn't have a place to put her, and I didn't want them to force her into the movie.
And
no, they didn't, because it was in the after credits. You're not forced into the movie. That would be like if she showed up at the end in a proton pack too. Then I would have been like, that's forced. But where else would you have logically put her throughout the movie? So her showing
nowhere, because the movie, because at the end of the movie, it's the three guys, and it's called Ghostbusters. So like the three guys are the only people that matter in that scene. Like it's like,
well, yeah, I know that, but that's what the after credits is for. It like what basically you're like. So if you're saying that if Sigourney Weaver never showed up, you would have been like, good, like she didn't deserve to be in the movie.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, like she's not a Ghostbuster. I mean,
but she was just as important to the movie as the Ghostbusters were.
But I think that at that point, you're also going into there's a reason why the OG Ghostbuster only showed up in the third act is because their lore and stuff is talked about and explained vocally throughout the first 2/3 of the movie, and that's how you're kind of getting caught up with these characters. But like once you're showing non-Ghostbusters related stuff, which is like him and him and Sigourney Weaver's character just bullshitting around in like the office or whatever, like or it was at their house, I don't know. But it's just like it just felt pointless to me. Like I don't know.
But here's the thing though, and I think that's where the opinion thing comes in, because I can guarantee you that I would think more people enjoyed it than didn't.
Yeah, I just felt it was like super forced and unnecessary.
But like that's the thing though, is like forced maybe, unnecessary. That's where I can't say that, because at a certain point I just feel like people want to see what they want to see. Like at a certain point you're like, here's the things I need, and I guarantee you if you gave most people a list, Sigourney Weaver would show up somewhere in the top 5 things, or maybe even 10 things of stuff you want. And the fact that she was even put in, I just love the fact that you see and Sigourney Weaver come up in the screen, and they redid that. Like, yeah. I like, even my mom and dad like that scene. My sister even enjoyed the scene after like my dad explained it to her. But I think that's where it comes down to. Like, I understand why you would say that. I completely understand.
Yeah, it's just that like
a scene that didn't feel needed,
it's a movie about the new blood, and at the end of the movie, you're just like, okay, well, like the people who don't know too much about the original Ghostbusters are just like, all right, well, I watched this movie about the new characters, and like these 2 end credit scenes are with stuff I don't know about. Like, why wouldn't even like one end credit scene, or like I get any type of direction?
I think
for the entire characters, if the movie wasn't this new Ghostbusters movie wasn't about the OG characters per se. It was about this family finding, like, it was a family drama almost, where it was like a girl finding out about her deceased grandfather and all this other stuff. The Ghostbusters stuff was in the back, because obviously, like you said, the tone of the movie was like different than the first one. And so I think, yeah, that's where I was like, okay, I wish I had something at the end. Not like you said, you are right in the sense that I didn't necessarily mean, hey, we're going to New York now, like this is how we're going to tie into it. But just like some sort of like hint or some subtle thing to say like, hey, this is how the old generation and the new generation are going to stay connected. So at the end of the movie, I'm just like, well, was Ernie Hudson, Bill Murray, and Dan Aykroyd, like, were they all dicks? And just like everything McKenna Grace and Finn Wolfhard and podcast all work towards, they just took from them? Like that's where my mindset is, because like that's
See, but
the
that's not
last
where
thing.
my mindset is. I have the opposite mindset.
I
And
know,
I
but
mean
that's
that,
like the last thing. The last thing you know of in the movie is that Ernie Hudson took the Ecto-1 away from the kids, and the proton packs and stuff came with him.
yeah, and I
So
like,
it's just like, wait,
but
what?
I don't see that
What
as
was
like
the
a
point?
dickhead move. I see that as the opposite. Because like I see that as an implied thing of like, hey, it's implied that they're going to end up in New York at some point. Because realistically, there is, as far as I'm concerned, no talk of a sequel yet. I mean, obviously that's behind the scenes stuff and stuff they won't
Yeah,
leak.
the director of this one said if there was a sequel, he would like to
Yeah,
see what other directors have to
it's
bring to the table.
yeah, it's like if, and I think at a certain point, it really comes down to the fact that if they added something, you're implied that you kind of need to do something. Because I just see it as like once their story was over with the ghosts, the reason that I kind of see it was like, and this is going to sound kind of wonky on top of that, but like I kind of see it as, well, that was the ghost thing because there hasn't been a ghost sighting in 30 years. There won't be for another. So I think Ernie Hudson opening it up, I think that that's going to be the next one. I think logically the kids are going to go to New York because, as you said earlier, Ernie Hudson's taking care of everyone. Why wouldn't
Yeah,
he
I
take
just
care of
like,
Egon's grandkids at that point if he got to reconnect with Egon at the end and be like even Dan Aykroyd's like, I'm sorry. Like, I should have listened. And with Egon realizing that, I
yeah.
just thought he was going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to take care of him now, too. Like,
Yeah,
I
and
feel like it's kind
I
of.
just like I do get that. Like maybe it's somewhat implied that if they do make a sequel, like we can all ponder in our own heads how a sequel would work. But I just think that like obviously the closure, the movie was a family drama, and the closure was the family laying their grandfather to rest. Like that's like the movie was about him, and that's why it's called Afterlife, because he's
Oh,
in the
yeah,
afterlife. Yeah,
100%.
and so I just think if the movie was a family drama about this specific family, at the end of the movie, these OG Ghostbusters take all of their stuff back, and like you would think because her grandfather was like the one who was keeping all this at bay and stuff like that, that like there would at least be some explanation as to why like they weren't left something. I don't know.
And
It,
that
it
might
just
be.
seems it just seems like, hey, we appreciate you fathering in your dad, like your grandfather's footsteps and taking down this ghost, but we're gonna like take all our resources and like any purpose you had, and we're just gonna make sure you don't have it anymore.
Well,
Like that's
and
what I see in my head.
but that's the thing, though. There's so much we don't know. Like, and legitimately, they could have already said they could have greenlit a sequel before this shit even came out. They could have
Yeah,
literally said, "Here's where it's going," and they didn't want to lead anything on to anything. And I
yeah.
feel like when Ernie Hudson did take the stuff, I can't see it as them being dicks. Like, I just can't because, like, I think that that's come where the nostalgia piece comes in is like, I feel like if people think Ernie Hudson is taking care of everybody, and yes, he takes the equipment back and stuff, but I think that if
Yeah, and I'm
anything,
pretty sure. Like, I think he might have mentioned in the end credit scene that he was like paying for like the family to stay afloat over
yeah, well,
there.
I mean, like even like the like just in general, the estate of everything, and I think that just he maybe above, but I can't imagine that he didn't kind of bring them with him, whether you see it
Yeah,
in there
so
or
like
not.
wrapping it up. I just think like for me, like I love the movie. The nostalgia was done right for the most part. I mean, there was a few things, like I said, definitely the third act being the thing I would probably change, but like Paul Rudd, I thought was kind of useless in the third act too. But it's just we've been over this. We disagree on that, but like overall, like I liked the movie. I thought it was better than the second one. I thought it was better than 2016. Was it as good as the original? No, obviously, because a lot of movies can't do that. But it's overall, yeah, I'd recommend it to fans, new fans, people who like Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. They might just go see it because of that. I think there's a lot of people who are 5, 10, 15 who are just seeing it for Finn Wolfhard. So, final thoughts for you, man?
I mean, I will take what you said and take it a step further. I love the movie. I absolutely loved it. And you know, I don't really write a lot on Facebook about what I see, but
Yeah.
I specifically wrote, I'm like, I want this to make the money it deserves. And I almost had no complaints. And I feel like the older I get, the less I want to sort of look for complaints and stuff. Like I said, the only thing
Yeah.
that I really felt the absence of was Rick Moranis, but maybe he'll show up later if they do follow this up somehow.
Who knows? Maybe that was him pulling in the Ecto-1 at the end.
Yeah,
I could have sworn
exactly.
I could have sworn I saw a silhouette of a dude with like glasses on. So like, so who knows? But yeah. Well, I'm glad you loved it, man. Like, we're both in agreement that we both enjoyed the movie. So I mean, we're still at that point together. So any final thoughts?
That's the bottom line. Go see it.
Yeah, go see it. If you haven't already and you're just letting us spoil it, well, I mean, see it on screen then. And even though you know what's going to happen, just enjoy the visual aspect.
Oh yeah, the visual aspect in itself, like, and the one thing we didn't really get to touch on, which we'll sneak this in at the very end, is the Blue Ghost that's voiced by Josh Gad.
Muncher or whatever.
Yeah, I thought that he was a pretty cool like follow-up extra thing of like he eats metal. Like, again, I know you don't really like that stuff because that would be like kind of copy pasting but changing a few things. But I actually like this character. What?
Copy and pasting what?
Oh, the fact that I see again. I'm terrible with names. The Green Ghost in the original, the Blue Ghost.
Slimer.
Slimer. Thank you. It's the exact copy of Slimer.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Muncher was like already a pre-existing Ghostbusters character, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe he wasn't. I haven't seen I've seen the first one more recently. I haven't seen the second one. So if you should, I
could be mistaken though.
Dude, sometimes it just gets wonky. Honestly, the bottom line is this movie is good. And people should definitely give it the time of day, because if we make this work and you guys really do love this movie, maybe we can get a sequel made just by showing how much we care about it.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought Muncher was maybe in the cartoon or the comics, but either way, yeah, like go see the movie. You guys, leave your comments down below. I want to see him. I want to talk about it. I want to bullshit with everyone. And pretty soon moving forward, I want to have the other YouTubers back, because it's been a while since I've talked to you guys. I kind of like was feeling a little anxiety, and so I've turned to my friends. Usually you guys are my friends too, don't get me wrong. But yeah, hopefully in the future we will all collab again. So Mike, thanks for joining me, man.
Oh, of course, I love doing these. Thank you for having me.
Hell yeah, dude. Take it easy. Thanks for watching, guys.